Hello, my captains, and welcome to Astro Extra Uranus in Aries. We're at a very exciting time in human history. It is the innovation of the human ego. That's what Uranus in Aries comes down to. Make sure you watch the introduction video in this series because we get really deep on the definition of Uranus, definition of Aries, and the history of this. This is a profound moment. And you know, a lot of different aspects go into this spiritual shift we're going into. What is 2012 about? All these things. Well, really, all the planets have some sort of story when it comes to this change. And Uranus in Aries is a very powerful, important aspect of the new age. It is the breakdown of human ego, which is probably the biggest obstacle in spiritual evolution. The ego, right? That's what's in the way. That's what egos do, is get in the way, deliberately. And every 86 years, Uranus says, you're in the way. Time to break you down and rebuild you, basically, or innovate you. That's the best term. But before we talk about Uranus in Aries, let's review Uranus in Pisces, shall we? So we have some retroactive kind of perspective on what we're about to go through. In 2003, Uranus entered into Pisces, and for Capricorns, this was the beginning of a 7-year breakthrough of your intellect, the way Capricorns think. Now, in 2003 to 2005, that was probably the biggest breakdown period. When Uranus is in the first 4 to 5 degrees of a transit, that's where usually the biggest breakdown happens. So from 03 to 05, how were you intellectually breaking down? Now, by intellect, we refer to mind games, depression, ADD, denial, okay? Of course, any kind of psychotic episode, in some cases, any kind of psychic episode. Sometimes our psychic ability or telepathy comes through here. Mostly, though, we're talking about attitudes and prejudices, which I have to say, Capricorns were filled with a lot of them prior to 2003. Capricorns have become a lot open-minded in the last 7 years. It's been pretty incredible. In fact, I'm surprised sometimes when I talk to a Capricorn how open-minded they are. Y'all didn't used to be that way in the 90s, trust me. I married one. But now, y'all are incredibly open-minded. You have innovated the way you look at things. You've stepped out of negative thinking. And most importantly, what I've noticed with Capricorns is you tend to be less judgmental. Capricorns used to be really judgmental, but now you're being really open-minded and more compassionate, which is the way Capricorns should be and usually are, but it takes Uranus swinging around to Pisces every 86 years to kind of put you back in your open-minded space. But you can admit that Capricorns had been pretty much closed-minded up until then. So look at how your thoughts, your attitude, your language, your intellectual approach, your mind games, look at how that has changed since 2003 until now, how you think differently. Now, for those of you who are like in your 20s, you probably thought, oh, I was just growing up. True. Usually you can see Uranus transits much better as you become more of an adult because you've gotten into a routine, you've gotten to know who you are, and so it's easier to see how you've changed because you know who you are. If you were going through Uranus in Pisces and you were in your early 20s, you probably just thought, that was my 20s. You didn't realize your intellect was going through transformation. Well, Aries in a chart for any sign tells us astrologers where you draw strength from, where you draw courage from. It is the epicenter of your strength and courage and what allows you to have the power behind your ego consciousness. Now, Capricorns have a Capricorn ego, but your strength and your integrity comes from your home, family, and foundation. Aries in the Capricorn solar chart rules the 4th house, which means in the next 7 years, Capricorns will be breaking down and breaking through to a new foundation for their life. At the very simplest aspect of this, this is your self-nurturing consciousness. One of the 12 states of awareness is our self-nurturing. There is a spiritual consciousness that is constantly checking our temperature, checking our stomach, checking our bladder, checking to see if the door is locked, are we safe, checking to see if we're comfortable. It's the checking in on us consciousness, right? The medulla oblongata, if you know brain architecture, is probably a 4th house or Cancer organ of the brain. It is the self-nurturing checking in. The medulla oblongata keeps you breathing all the time. You don't have to think about it. You've got a consciousness that keeps you alive. That's what this is about. So in the next 7 years, the part of you that is based on your survival, the part of you that nurtures yourself, the extensions of that consciousness that keep you nurtured. Your home, your family, the nest that you build for your soul garden. This is the consciousness that will break down and break through. And it's from having a solid home, it's from having a solid foundation that Capricorns really draw all of their ability in power and to control and be captains of the ship out there. In fact, one thing I've always admired about Capricorns, women and men, is how well they take care of themselves. Have you guys noticed that you are basically ageless? Capricorns don't age. They're on a reversing age process. They look better every year that they get older. And silver and gray just makes them even hotter. That is a Aries in the fourth. Solid, non-aging, taking good care of yourself. I remember actually with my ex-wife and other Capricorns I know, I go in their bathroom, 10 billion products. One for softening the hair, one for slightly softening the hair. And I'm not making fun. I'm just saying, oh my gosh, the extent to which a Capricorn will self-nurture is amazing. But whatever extent that is, it's going to be taken to the next level. So in the first 4 or 5 degrees of any transit, that's where the most breakdown happens. Incidentally, Uranus will hit 4 degrees in March 2012. So in this first period, this first window of breakdown, anything built on a false premise when it comes to self-nurturing will break down. If you've got a false situation where you're leasing your apartment, in other words, you got in on the lease on someone else's lease, it's not very solid, breakdown. Any kind of false issue with your mortgage, breakdown. Anything in your house that's built incorrectly, so if the chimney wasn't built right, could break down. Anything in relationships in your family where it's always fake or you're always fighting with your mom or your dad or your Aunt Betty will break down. Anything that helps you with self-nurturing that's built on false premise will break down, even if it is the legs on your bed, because those were built poorly as well. And more spiritually and more importantly, any behavior or attitudes you have about self-nurturing that are false or don't serve your self-nurturing will break down. So for instance, if you have sworn by the Atkins diet and that's all you do, and the Atkins diet is in fact not best for your body type, your health will break down because that self-nurturing is built on false premise for you. Breakdown, breakdown, breakdown. Now it sounds kind of hard, and it is. That's what Aries is about, where our strength and courage comes from. And we get strength and courage from survival, from breaking through, from making it through a hard time. So I'm not going to candy coat this and say this is going to be an easy transit. It's not by design. You will not get big muscles from lifting small weights. And it's all in proportion to who you are and what you need to learn, particularly the elements of your natal chart. Look up your natal chart and see how good you were at fourth house stuff to begin with. That'll tell you how much work you actually have. But the good news is once you're through the breakdown period, you will then go to the breakthrough period. You will find your strength. You will find the voice that helps you self-nurture. You will find the home that you'll be most comfortable in. You will find a solution with that argumentative parent or family member, or you will agree to disagree. The innovation energy will help you build the best home possible, will help you build the best self-nurturing practices possible. You will find the best shampoos and conditioners possible. So innovation of Uranus does have the motive of you being happy and finding the best of the best of the best. But the first few degrees do mean anything built on poor or false breaks down. All right, Capricorn, that's all I have for Uranus and Aries at this time. But you know I'll be back whenever a planet shifts into a sign or does something kind of interesting with Astro Extra. And until then, Captain, live, love, be.
So garden.